Okay, we're live. Hello, welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast. I'm Chris Garner, joined with my co-host George Aldridge, and today we're going to be giving our review on Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice Ultimate Edition. This came out. When did this come out? This was this week, wasn't it, for us on Blu-ray?
On Monday, the Blu-ray came out, so we finally got the extended edition.
Yeah, I know it had been out in a while in the US, but as always, we get stuff late, so we only got it just the last week gone. And we were deciding whether to do a review on it or not because we'd already done a big live stream review when we saw the film in March. But with all the talk of the Ultimate Edition adding, it's like 25 minutes, half hour into it, people were saying it really kind of changes the movie, enhances it more, and it's kind of a different viewing experience. So we thought, with both of us seeing it, we'll get on and we'll get a review, because my trailer reaction for the Ultimate Edition is our most disliked video on the channel. Not many popular opinions from me on that one about the film, but I felt a bit differently watching this one, and I kind of wanted to get on the camera and discuss the new scenes and stuff. So if I'm casting back to when we did our review of it, it was me, you, and Tom on that one. Me and Tom hated the movie. I don't think we could have physically hated that movie anymore. You were I think you were tending more towards liking it, but you did see both sides of it, didn't you?
Oh yeah, it's like a Transformers film. It's not special, but I enjoyed it. There's a lot. It's got a bashing, and I'll say this. There's another DC film that's got a bashing. It's basically people, the twats that are getting upset at Rotten Tomatoes. It's a percentage score. It doesn't deserve as much hate as it's had. That's the nicest way of putting it. It's better than what they've said, but all the problems are there. But there is some good stuff.
Yeah, and I can't remember what this is currently settled at on Rotten Tomatoes. I think it's like at 30-something%, isn't it?
But again, people shouldn't take that shit so seriously, because Indiana Jones 4 is in the 60s, and Factor was hated, Blade Runner was hated when they come out. So yeah, always, reviews, just freaking don't look at them, or look at the ones you like. Don't see a score and cry.
And with this review today, I should say as well, we've both seen Suicide Squad, but we're not going to bring Suicide Squad into this one at all. There's just no point. We're going to do a review for that tomorrow. We want that to be its own thing. Also, this one, I know we've just sort of gone over it now, initial impressions, but we're not re-reviewing the movie. We're purely reviewing the new scenes and if it enhances the experience or not. So we may as well jump straight into it now. So we'll go scene by scene. There's a lot of slight little changes, maybe a couple of seconds here, a few minutes here, that are just sort of a little embellishment, but we're going to be focusing on the main ones. So the first one really is just sort of an extended part of the Metropolis action scene at the start, where we get Bruce Wayne, and he finds, it's when the building comes down and he runs into it, and there's sort of like a chain of school kids being led away by the teachers, and one of them's broke away from the chain, and he kind of gives her back to the teachers. It's a nice little scene. It's a nice little character moment. Again, it wasn't really needed, because a couple of seconds later we get the scene where he saves the little girl with the Wayne Enterprises building. I thought it was a nice scene, though. It was cool. That's one of my favourite scenes of the film, actually, is the opening. I thought that was really nice how they tied it all in. And just any more stuff with Affleck's good for me, because I think he's definitely hands down the best thing in that movie.
Yeah, I think with the little addition to that, when I was watching it, I noticed all these kids sort of school. It's like a school trip, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it felt very nice.
Yeah, well, I mean, the imagery for that was right there with Man of Steel, wasn't it? Let's be honest, in the ending and running into the ash cloud, they're still doing that. But the first real meaty big change of it comes with the Africa stuff, and that was rumored for ages. Like, as soon as the film came out and all the backlash was coming out from it, I think Zack Snyder said something about there's a whole subplot that got removed with the whole Africa stuff. Seeing the original film, I thought that stuff was completely pointless, and it felt pointless to me now after watching this, because they cut all the stuff out of it. They cut all the plot out of it. Now it's been put back in, so we get a proper introduction to the character of Jimmy Olsen. I really hate that that's the character of Jimmy Olsen in most of the comic books. I know he's been a CIA agent sometimes, but he just kind of works at the Daily Planet. He's like a fun, plucky character. is one of the best friends of Clark Kent. And in this, he's just a CIA agent that gets like shot within the first couple of minutes of his being introduced. But we get a proper introduction to him, and he calls himself Jimmy Olsen. We get a little bit more of like the political background situation with Africa and the civil war that's happening over there, and why Lois is there to do the journalism. And then it really sort of gets to the point with the CIA drones and the KGB burning the bodies, which influences the entire rest of the film, really, and why everyone's having a go at Superman, why is everyone's accusing him of causing all this destruction. We get the KGB sort of like piling up all the bodies and burning them with a flamethrower, and they frame Superman for using his heat vision and just destroying this whole village in Africa. Which then leads into the whole, there's like an African woman who's been hired by Lex as an actress to sort of defend the case that Superman was the one that caused it all. Did you like all that extra Africa stuff, or do you think it still kind of bogged the movie down a little bit?
It made a lot more, it made sense in the first one as it drew on, but it was pointless. But in this, it kind of, when in the final third, at the Sunday meet, when everything clicks together, the Africa stuff's paid off. But you don't get that with the original cut. Get it with this, and there's relevance to it all, which is important. Some of it's still pointless, but not necessarily clever. But it worked, and it made a hell of a lot more sense than just what originally happened, where they shot them and left for no reason. And now it builds. You get a thorough understanding of why that scene was included. And kind of makes you think, it's like, for fuck's sake, why isn't this in the original cut? Because that was clearly needed. He also tried to use as much as the Africa stuff as he could. That was essential, because obviously the whole bullet thing is integral to the plot. So I think he tried to use as much of the Africa sequences and the theatrical as he could without losing it all. So I'm guessing Warner Bros. Would have told him to wipe all that off if they could.
They would have definitely, well, the rumours were, and I think you told me this, Warner Brothers wanted to cut the movie down so they could get it viewed in more screens. Because the longer the film, the fewer screens you can have, the less money you're going to make ultimately. And I think that, well, we'll kind of get into this in the end if you think this is the version they should have originally put out, but they just seem to constantly be shooting themselves in the foot with all their decision-making at the minute. And I'm wondering if they told him to, like, oh, trim that bit out, if it was like a domino effect. And, like, by trimming that out, well, now we've got the setup for it, so we've got to take that out too. It just snowballs, but next time you know it, half hour's gone out of the film and all the plot's gone. Again, I still don't think in the film the Africa stuff is necessary in a Batman v Superman film, but in the theatrical version, when you watch it, it feels like it's just a mechanic to have something for Lois to do in the film. Otherwise, she's just completely and utterly pointless. But with this, because it kind of filters into more of the plot of what's going on with Superman and him being framed, which then leads to the Senate things, it does feel more like a narrative whole now, which is what I like. And also the shot that was in the trailer from the Africa section, you get that great helicopter shot of, is it all the CIA people on horseback riding away, or is that like the KGB's team?
It's the CIA, I think.
It's still really complicated, that whole situation at the start, but and we also get the scene of Superman sort of flying through the drone and it exploding, which is awesome. Really good introduction to the character there. Our next change comes in, again, really slight one. You've got the two police officers posting up in a car, in a cop car in Gotham, and they're watching the football match. That was rumoured probably from the first Empire issue that they were filming a football match, and a lot of people were thinking if they were going to do something like Dark Knight Rises again with like Bane rocking up to a football match. Some were saying that they thought they were going to add in the character of Cyborg there. I don't know much about the character of Cyborg. I don't know if he's a footballer or something like that, but I guess that would have been kind of cool to have that in there. It's kind of a pointless change. I think most of these changes in the film, they're always like either at the beginning or at the end, and it just feels like either the start or the tail sections. So with a scene like this, it's a bit more of an establishing shot. Because that's one of the problems I have with Man of Steel and this movie, is that it kind of just automatically throws you into a scene, and it feels really awkward with how the characters are placed. So by having this scene with the cops in Gotham and you get the landscape shot of Gotham, it's just a bit of a kind of, right, we're here now, this is where this scene's taking place. So not really needed, but it's nice to get some Gotham stuff, I guess. don't know if that's really worth talking about. That was just one of the scenes I noticed. We get an extended Lois and Clark bathtub sex scene. Again, kind of pointless. It seems like they were just really reaching for that R-rated certificate. But one of the best things I'll say, we can talk more about this, is sort of like how they've shuffled scenes around. Because the theatrical cut, for me, I said it felt like just a collection of random scenes without any kind of connective thread. Like, you could literally reshuffle them in any order and the film would play out exactly as it did. But with Lex Luthor, when you first get introduced into him, what they do in this movie is they take the two Lex scenes that follow each other. And I think in the film it like played a bit of one, then it cut to like some other characters in between, then it cut back to Lex. They've taken that second Lex scene and mashed the two together now. So you stay with his character for about 5 or 10 minutes. And there's a great video on the internet, which I saw yesterday. I'll put the link in the description, by the Nerd Writer, who kind of goes into the fundamental problem with Batman v Superman about the lack of scenes and how it's very jumpy and we don't linger on anything. This kind of corrected that for me. Because you stay with one character for a long time, it felt more like a complete scene. You had the beginning, middle, and end. It's still not a perfect movie, but I think shuffling some of these scenes around, it made the first and second act for me a lot stronger of this movie. And I think that's ultimately why I enjoyed it more than theatrical. It just feels much better paced, even though it's a long film still. I mean, you were talking about this yesterday when you were watching it. I think I had to watch it in 2 sittings because I just physically couldn't get through it, but the pace of it is a lot better for me. I don't know if you found that with the first couple of acts.
Pacing-wise, again, I wouldn't say it felt better, it just felt less random. It still felt like 3 hours, because obviously it was.
Absolutely, yeah.
Once you get past an hour and a half, it slows down. Especially when you know the boring Doomsday stuff still come in. So pacing, I wouldn't say pacing was better, but it just felt more complete as a film. That's the most I can say sort of end of it. No.
We get some shots of Clark watching news stories with the African woman again, saying that he caused all this distress and things like that. But what a lot of people said was, and what I kind of found from Batman v Superman, is that inherently it should be a Man of Steel sequel. And you talked about this. You brought up the point about how it feels like a third movie. It feels like we missed the sequel to Man of Steel. And I think in our review you said it's like 5 movies happening at once. You know, it's trying to set up Justice League. It's a Batman solo movie, and just all the rest of it. It's just yeah. But I would say that this cut of the movie definitely makes it more a Clark Superman film. We didn't really get much of him in the other movie, and it was very much trying to set up Affleck's Batman. But I think with like the added scenes here with Clark doing some investigation, you know, he's going against the planet. Perry White gives him the story that he's got to write about the football match that's happening, which again ties back into that previous scene we saw of the police officers. But we see Clark taking a little bit more action. He's going into Gotham on his own. He's talking to some of the locals there. You get sort of like a ground level with the people. Like, you get to know their opinions on the Bat character and Superman and things like that. And it just felt a bit more personal. It felt like Clark had a bit more of a stake in it, like he was actually taking charge and doing something. Again, I would have liked more Superman in it, doing Superman things, but if you're going to add more Clark Kent into it, although they're not really character scenes, it's very much still plot. It's nice to see him actually, you know, be in the movie. And then you get that great scene at the end of it where when he's sort of like doubting himself, he calls his mum up in Kansas and he asks about... you just messaged me. Can you hear a dog barking? Yes, I can hear a dog barking, but we're going to move on.
There we go.
That's better. But yeah, the scene where Clark calls his mum up. Again, really, really short scene, probably less than a minute, but it was just... It's like they're cherry picking, like just tiny little dots here and there of scenes that just reinforce the characters a bit more. So... I loved all that stuff, but I'm going to let you talk more about Jenna Malone in this one, because I think you knew more about the kind of behind-the-scenes stuff with Jenna Malone.
There was always talk that she was going to be like Robin or some crap like that. The bog standard, she's playing someone, it's going to be this person, but to me it just felt like she's just a genuine character. Like someone that seems made redundant, but they probably cast it because I think he's worked with her before in other films.
Yeah.
So again, it didn't add too much, but it was a kind of half interesting sort of side story to Lois. It makes her feel a bit more important. It's kind of half important in the sense that because she's working on a key plot point, but then again, you don't feel like you've gained anything from having her there because 10 seconds of exposition can take up her 2-3 scenes. Yeah,
well, it's just sort of her. It's like her scientist friend, really, isn't it? Just Lois's scientist friend, where she goes with all this stuff and then she gets it all fixed up. I think ultimately, where I don't know if it was Zack Snyder or Warner Brothers, where they shot themselves in the foot with this, because a lot of people that watched this cut were really just underwhelmed with her reveal. They'd hyped that shit up for ages. Like when she was originally cast and didn't appear in the film, people were thinking, oh, you know, I heard different things like she's going to play Carrie Kelly, the Robin from The Dark Knight Returns, because this is kind of very much based in that graphic novel. I heard Batgirl, Oracle, I heard a whole bunch of stuff. And then ultimately when you get to this,
none of it.
In the trailer, she's just a Star Labs scientist, really, just nothing to. And actually, when you see a performance in this, I think she could have played a good Oracle. I really do. Like, I liked her character and I kind of wanted to see more, but just having her as like generic scientist, you kind of wonder why she was cast in that. So that's all like the Lois stuff going on. And we get the, let me just have a look. I'm kind of all over the place with this one. You get some like security footage of Batman stealing the kryptonite, which is awesome. And I kind of wish that we'd have had that scene play out in real time instead of the big Mad Max Fury Road style Batmobile chase, which I still hate. I hate that scene so much. Batman killing people, I've gone on a massive rant about that. Thankfully, they kind of cleared that up in Suicide Squad a little bit, but I'm reviewing the film. I shouldn't be reviewing the film, but seeing that security footage and it's just one quick shot of like, it's almost like the Arkham games, like the inverted takedown where he just like swoops down, picks someone up. That's complete and utter Batman. That's more of the stuff I want to see. Let's have a look. So we've got Clark Hall, his mom, Jenna Malone. The Bat Brand stuff. Do you want to go into that a bit more? Because that's kind of another big chunk that gets developed a lot more.
What, the Bat Brand?
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously this was in the trailer, so this was quite a big deal in terms of acting-wise. And then in the first, I think in the theatrical cut, I've only seen it once, I can't remember, but he just brands him and that's it, and suddenly that's enough for Superman to investigate. Then in this one, they then start giving that info that everyone that gets branded gets killed in prison, so it's basically a death mark. And that straight away makes you think, okay, now I see why Superman's kind of interested. So to me, that's an important angle that they should have kept him. Then as obviously the plot progresses, you find out that Batman's branding them, but I'm guessing he's probably unaware that Lex Luthor's people are having them killed in jail. Which is interesting because it sets up the Lex Luthor dynamic of him playing both Batman and Superman. Whereas before that, you don't really think he's playing Batman at all.
No, I still think that's really cloudy sort of Lex's motivation in that film. And that was something I was hoping this cut would improve upon. And I would say it does improve it a little bit. We can kind of see like how far he's charted back with like the Africa stuff and, as you say, with like the Bat Brand. But it's still really, really murky for me. And it's not very clear as to why he's doing it or how he even started going about it. And the Bat Brand as well, that was an idea I never really liked. I know it's sort of a more extreme thing we've seen Batman do, but it just seemed a little bit pointless in the theatrical edition. It's got more of a sort of a reason here with being killed in prison. But, I mean, they mention, I think, at the start, I don't know if he was like a child murderer or a child rapist or something like that. So, I mean, I've never been to prison, thankfully, but I've heard that, you know, people get killed and beaten up in prison all the time for that kind of stuff. So it doesn't really strike me as something that's different, like they're just tying it to Batman, because I think that shit would happen anyway. You know, it's...
I mean, I don't know, Chris. I'm not a pedo or a murderer.
No.
No.
But it just seems a bit weird for me, you know, still, like, it's not really clear. There's not much story behind it. It's just kind of thrown in as an awkward...
I'm guessing he worked out a way... the way I think he did it in reverse, he goes, oh shit, how do we make them targets? Oh, he Batmans them. Whereas now if they got caught by Batman anyway. So in theory, they don't really need to have a Batman.
And DC fanboys are just jumping on the bandwagon saying, well, this is a more extreme Batman. This is middle-aged Batman where he's gone through all these like 20 plus years of crime fighting. And this is like hardened, edged Batman, and he's doing all this extreme stuff. And it's like, no, it's not. You're just giving yourself that reason. It's just because Zack Snyder didn't understand the character.
He's still incredible as Batman in it. But yeah, the DC... I could easily rant about fanboys because I'm sick to death of it.
No, we'll do that tomorrow. We'll do that tomorrow for Suicide Squad.
Sick to death of it all. And they can just go fuck themselves in a nice way. Oh, and by the way, just in case they didn't clock on, I own like fucking 20, 30 odd DC graphic novels, and like on top of their wardrobe is like every single comic book film I've got, which is like 80 odd. So I'm a hater apparently, although I probably own more DC stuff than everyone.
Yeah, me too. I own every single Batman film. I bought The Killing Joke yesterday, graphic novel. Yeah, but apparently I don't understand Batman or don't understand the character. Okay, I'll see how it is. Saving that for tomorrow. So going back to some more of the scenes. The Senate stuff actually gets kind of more fascinating now because the Senator, I don't know if this is in the theatrical cut again because I've only seen the theatrical cut a few times. It's like she knows Lex Luthor's what his plan was now with the Africa stuff because she's talking with one of the associates before, and then Lex shows up out of nowhere. It's a bit more menacing reveal. I know you can't make Jesse Eisenberg menacing in this film at all because his performance is complete balls to the wall, but it was kind of a cool moment when I watched it and went like, oh, if this would have been a different Lex Luthor, this would have been a really intimidating moment. But it was almost like... What, sorry?
Bryan Cranston.
Right, yeah. Oh, man, don't. I remember when the casting was coming out for that and everyone was throwing that name around. That would have been incredible. Well, maybe they'll still do it because they keep mentioning bringing up his dad in this one in case they want to backpedal again in the next movie and bring proper Lex Luthor into it. But to me, the way I interpreted this scene was when the Senator says today is a day for truth. In the theatrical cut, everyone thought it was Superman. But to me, in this one, when she keeps looking over at Lex's empty seat, it was like she was going to expose Lex Luthor for the guy he really is. And I thought that was kind of a cool spin. I still do think it was a huge missed opportunity in the movie on Zack Snyder's part to not have Superman talk at the hearing. I thought that would have been really good, sort of like put his case across to the people. But my favourite change follows right after the building blows up, the Senate building. We actually see Superman saving people. You know, he comes out, he's got a woman, he's like flew her out of the building. And then he looks over at Lois and he's kind of having this crisis again of whether he wants to be Superman or if he even cares about saving people anymore. And then he flies off again. So he does kind of abandon everyone unless maybe she was the last person in the building. But it was nice to see Superman doing Superman things. And I can't even imagine why Warner Brothers or whoever it was ultimately in the final cut made them take that scene out. It's like a tiny little 1 minute scene, if that, and it just reinforces so much about the character.
It's because they've already got some Superman saving scenes. It's just shot in super slow-mo and gone for 5 minutes, I think, to save 3 people.
Yeah, he looks really fucking miserable all the way through it.
If they wanted to save time, they could have made 90% of the slow motion scenes normal time.
But it wouldn't look as epic on the big screen. It's as you said yesterday, it's so dense, there's so much going on.
In every single frame.
Yeah. I mean, the film still looks gorgeous. Like, even these new scenes added in, there's still, cinematically, it looks brilliant, but there's just no substance or story behind it. Which is
he'd be a great plagiarism cinematographer. But, I like the film. There's just a lot of flaws with it, and it annoys me people can't see the flaws. But it also annoys me people don't see any good bits and don't credit any good bits. So I like playing in the neutral ground. But there's just some bits that you do not need to see a 5-minute montage of Superman saving trees in slow motion.
Yeah, and it's got like that whole...
There was one of them on a roof, right, and they painted the Superman logo, and I actually looked, goes, wait, how did they get the paint on the roof?
Yeah. And the best thing is that Superman is like...
There was a tub of paint on the roof with a paintbrush, so I give him credit for that.
It's not like, you know, Superman has super hearing, so could hear them screaming halfway across the planet and go and save them anyway. He's not even saving them, is he? Like, they're about to, like, fucking drown, but he's still got to take the time out to pose and do his epic Superman in the sunset pose before he even swoops down and picks them up.
a rocket explodes and he's there within 2 seconds, which I think is impossible even for him.
Yeah.
But no, we can't hate because he's saving people.
Yeah, exactly.
Although that extended scene, it just reminded me of the hospital scene at Dark Knight. Afterwards when the hospital's been blown up, they're all in the blood.
Oh, yeah.
Felt like that, but what was interesting though was that I don't think this is written down in our schedule, but I'll say it. They mentioned that Scott McNairy's character, don't know the name of it, the disabled guy.
Mm-hmm.
The theatrical cut, they never imply that he knew he was going to get blown up. Everyone thought he was a suicide bomber, and in this one, to their credit, he said that he didn't know himself.
Yeah.
Again, that's something that should have been in the main cut, because that's 30-second exposition.
And again, not only for his character and for like Lex's ultimate plan, but also for the Superman character, because they go on later to say that Lex had fitted and lined the entire chair with lead. Superman can't see through lead, so that's the reason he didn't notice the bomb at the Senate building. And then there's the moment where it's one of my favorite bits of the film, actually, where Superman's on the balcony, he's having like a crisis of faith, and Lois is there, and he says, like, I'm afraid I wasn't looking because, I didn't want to, like, I wasn't looking on purpose. But now we find out that he physically couldn't see through it. It just adds to the Superman character again, because it went in the theatrical cut, you kind of just get the impression like he doesn't give a shit. He didn't save anyone after the Senate building, so he just like fucked off, didn't save anyone. It's just little bits like this. It's still not enough as much as I wanted, but it's enough for that kind of film, if that makes any sense. Like, it does bring it up slightly more than just, bad to like average now, I would say. You've got a few little throwaway lines with like Alfred and a few little scenes like there. We get an extended scene of seeing Lois getting kidnapped. We get a bit more of a lead up as well to Superman in the mountains. He sort of like passes a bunch of mountaineers or mountain men, and they speak in their native tongue to say that that path is where people go to die or something like that. We just see Superman just completely broken. I still question the weird Vision story of what's his name, Kevin Costner on the mountain with his hero cake, and how he saved the farm and drowned another farm in the process. It's just a bit strange. Let's see, you get a bit of a longer warehouse fight with Batman. It's a bit more brutal. He like throws a box at someone's head and it smacks them, and you get like the blood splatter down the wall. They add a lot more blood into it. He stabs a guy at the end of that, so it's a lot more brutal Batman of possibly murdering half the people in the room again. There's a bit of an exchange with Lex after the battle. The battle itself is slightly extended. There's a scene where Superman pushes Batman and he goes flying back and grates along the floor, because clearly they didn't do that enough in the actual fight anyway. And then after the fight, when Superman goes to Lex and Lex says, like, you're out of time, you're too late. There's a scene where Superman says to Lex, like, you will learn, and Lex is like, I don't know how to lose, or something like that. It took me back to Christopher Reeve's Superman, because that exchange there between him and Lex was like classic Superman and Lex to me, so that was kind of nice. And then other than the funeral scene, it's just really like a series of incidental moments, like the Doomsday fight slightly longer. We see Doomsday destroy an extra helicopter. The impaling of Superman's a bit more brutal, like he grabs a hold of like the hand of Doomsday and like pulls himself more onto the spike to stab him.
I quite like that one because it shows that he knows he's going to die, rather than he's just been stabbed and then he stabs him. So at least he has to sacrifice himself.
It's more of that sacrifice, isn't it? Which is nice.
I thought that had been in the original cut, but apparently it wasn't. That shows a little I remember it all.
Well, I don't blame you, because, I mean, as I said, like with theatrical cuts, I usually watch them countless times, especially Lord of the Rings before those extended editions came out. I'd watched the film so many times that every single slight change, extended scene, new bit of dialogue, I knew exactly what it was. With this, these changes are just so minute, like a couple of seconds here, a couple of seconds there, that they're really not all that noticeable apart from some of the plot stuff. The Steppenwolf scene's been added in. That would actually really shock me, because I know that DC released that like a couple of days after the film came out and said this is a deleted scene from the movie, and I thought it was going to be exactly that, like a deleted scene. They chose to remove it. It may have been like a mid-credit scene or something like that, whatever they were going to do with it. it was kind of cool seeing it in the movie, and it makes more sense when you get to. I mean, I hate that moment, but the ding 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 moment, and you get the close up on the portrait again, and you've got the devil coming from the sky. It just keeps it more grounded, and as a cinematic universe as well, it sets up for what's to come, and I think that should have been needed. And the funeral scene, I really like this funeral scene. When I watch, I still don't really feel anything when I watch it, because I think that we needed a couple more films of Superman either on his own, get him in Justice League a bit first, and then eventually get to the death of Superman. But it was nice, like we see the entire city in mourning. Perry White's at the funeral, all the people from the Daily Planet, and Pete Ross was there, who's a character who was in Man of Steel. He was like the childhood bully, but became his friend, worked at the IHOP. Again, more connective tissue to the cinematic universe. I really like that stuff. And it just felt more, by adding that in, it felt more conclusive at the end, and with more Clark scenes in it, a little bit more Superman here and there. Still not enough. It did give the ending a bit more weight, I would say, although I don't think they needed to go with the whole death of Superman stuff just yet. Did you pick up anything new at the funeral or anything like that? I think they also say that Bruce Wayne paid for the expense of the funeral as well.
They never say Bruce Wayne, they just say an anonymous donor, which obviously Bruce Wayne paid for it. I didn't really notice the funeral being extended. I did notice the Arkham Asylum comment that Lex said. I thought that was in theatrical, but apparently it wasn't as well. But it's just interesting how many different changes there are. I would have liked to have seen a lot of it in the theatrical though, because again, just going into an overview, some of it is necessary to the film. So, you know, if Warner Bros. Were being twats, or if Zack Snyder was being dumb and knowing what he could take away, if that makes sense, I think everyone's at fault for this, because at the end of the day, he should not have had a 3-hour film that's trying to be 3 films in one. She said, right, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to make a 2-hour film. He did the same with Watchmen, made it too long. They dug themselves into a hole by trying to do too much in too little time. And then you could play with Warner Bros. As well.
Was Watchmen done by Warner Brothers as well?
Yeah, it's owned by DC Comics.
Well, see, the thing is with Watchmen, the theatrical cut still made sense on its own. It was still a complete movie. The other cuts were like sort of like an embellishment if you did want a little bit more. Like there was the scene with the original Night Owl getting beat up by the gang, which is one of the most heartbreaking moments in the graphic novel, and it's really well done in the movie. And then he did the ultimate cut with the Black Freighter stuff added in. So they were just like optional. But if someone hasn't seen Batman v Superman, I still don't know if I'd recommend it, but absolutely just watch the Ultimate Edition. Yes, it's longer, but it's a fairly complete movie now. Like, it has somewhat of a plot. It has something going on. And although it's not great, it's not what I wanted from the movie, it's at least something. And if I'm going to compare this to any other cut, again, I like the theatrical cut of it, but the Daredevil director's cut with Ben Affleck from like 2003, that again cut a lot of subplots out and the real meat of the story, and then that was put back in with the director's cut. I guess we'll go into recommendations then. So would you recommend Batman v Superman or the Ultimate Cut in general?
I still would. However, if I was showing Batman for the first time to someone, I would still say watch the Dark Knight trilogy. It's just something, you go for the Ultimate because it's just easier and it's clearly what he wanted to do. Although there are some awful bits, it might make. I wish that I'd seen the Ultimate Edition for the first time rather than see a theatrical. Hindsight, if I'd have known, I probably wouldn't have actually gone to the cinema. Because everyone knew the reviews were shit and everyone knew an extended was coming out, I don't think a lot of people would have gone. Obviously, they announced the extended about a month after the cinemas went in. So it's just DC getting after money.
For me, I still very, very much dislike this movie. Tonally, it's wrong. It's just all over the place. There's not really much plot or narrative drive throughout it. As I mentioned, I'll tag it. I'll put the link in the description of the Nerd Writers thing where he says about the lack of scenes, and he kind of hits the nail on the head for me. That's exactly how I felt with the movie. But the Ultimate Cut is a better version of the movie. It does add doesn't add loads in, but it adds enough just to bring it up to average standard. I wish this had been the version that was released in the cinema. Maybe I wouldn't have been quite as mad about it as I was when I did my initial review of the theatrical cut. It's not a perfect movie. It's not a good movie by any stretch of the imagination, but if someone hasn't seen it, I would absolutely recommend the Ultimate Edition, because it's the one that's got the most plot in and makes kind of the most sense. There's some things that you can't change in it. You've still got the whole Martha thing at the end, which ends the fight and makes them best friends, which everyone hates. And actually, one of the changes that was rumored for a while, and what I was really looking forward to, was they said that the awkward teaser trailer video clips of the Justice League that Wonder Woman watches on the email things, that was done really last minute, really temporary, because they didn't finish the proper ending, which was going to be like a montage of all the different members of the Justice League in action over the credits. I was really looking forward to seeing that, but then it came out that no, it was still going to be the video clips that wasn't in the movie. We also didn't mention there was a Wonder Woman scene really briefly, just talking about the sword more and sort of her past, which I'm guessing is going to link into Wonder Woman when that comes out next year. So, yeah, I really don't know what to say. Hopefully this assuages some of the bad comments I got on my Ultimate Edition trailer. I said I wasn't going to watch the movie because I hated it so much. Well, I've watched it now. I've given my opinion on it. It still hasn't changed the movie for me, but I definitely think it elevates it a little bit more from what it originally was.
So to appease the children, you
yeah,
like it slightly more, but still dislike it.
Yeah, and we'll be talking a lot more tomorrow about another Ultimate Edition or Extended Edition we hope to see. But tomorrow we'll be on our Suicide Squad review, probably be another live stream one.
Well, there'll be all four of us as well.
Yeah, I hope so. I know me, you, and Tom have already seen it. We're waiting on Tate. I think he's seen it today, so we'll be on that tomorrow. That's going to be a really, really interesting one, and it may be one of the only times we actually agree on a DC movie wholeheartedly.
People agreeing on it too.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to talking about that one. In terms of what's coming up on the channel as well, more movie reviews as the weeks go on. Next week is Pete's Dragon. I'll be at that one. More reactions from me. I still need to edit the last day of Star Wars Celebration. When I get that out of the way, I'll be jumping back into reactions. I'll have more time to edit. I want to do Hacksaw Ridge. I want to do The Great Wall. And I think it's time now to do the behind the scenes of Rogue One, the video that I had to watch 3 times at the live stream. So look out for all that stuff. Timestamp 0 at the end of the month. The link for episode 5 to get voted on that is in the description. And yeah, that'll do it for our review on Batman Ultimate Edition. And until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.